right, we're on. Jorge, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, Ryan. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm feeling great on this weekend. Being here with you, ready to talk about climate action and climate change.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I got to tell people how I met you first. Jorge and I are friends since 12 years, and that's such a wonderful chain of events. I was in Rome. I remember clearly when we met, actually. It was my first backpacking trip. I don't know if it was your first or what, but we were 22 years old, very young. And for some reason, we were backpacking, but we were not staying in the city. We were staying in a hostel, which is a campsite, which was 2 train rides and a bus ride away from central Rome. I don't know how I got there. I don't know how you got there. But I remember we were there and they had a bar there and I was sitting and watching, I think it was a football because the Euro Cup was on, I think, right? And we were
Yes.
watching football and you were sitting behind me and started conversing and became good friends. And then we had the most incredible time in Rome. I remember going to the Vatican with you and we saw the Mass. That was such an incredible experience. And then we went out trying to
Yes.
party all night. And Jorge, being the charmer that he is, he found some girls on the subway ride back and charmed them into going out with us. And oh, it was a good time. And then we were supposed to meet in Florence, but because we didn't have smartphones and things of that nature, we couldn't. We decided to meet at a certain time, but we couldn't coordinate it right. Anyways, still, thanks to the beauty of technology and social media, we're still in touch. And here we are. And
Man, you remember so many details. You're so crispy. Your memory. I'm impressed. It's like wow.
I don't think that's a boon. I think
Time, man.
it's more of a curse than a boon to have such a. You also remember.
Very good. Very good.
But in those 12 years, at that time, I think Jorge used to work for Delta and I used to work for Jet. Those 12 years, Jorge has turned into a very acclaimed environmentalist. And oh, did I forget to tell everybody, he's an extremely accomplished dancer. I think it used to be his profession at that point in time. I'm pretty sure he's still dancing. That's why all the girls still love him. And who can fault them for that, right? But
I still dance. It's still my passion, and I'm actually with both careers. My environmental career, focused on sustainability, and also the Latin dancing that it's coming with me a long way. Currently, I'm doing a lot of folkloric Mexican dance. Believe it or not. And soon, I'm collaborating with video clips on Day of the Dead and just Mexican Independence Day. So I'm now working with a big group with the whole production. Always learning, always moving to new challenges. So yeah, I'm still on the move.
man, that Day of the Dead that you mentioned is one of my dreams to go and see that. I think one day we can go together to Mexico and see it there. It'll be a great pleasure.
Let's make it happen.
Awesome. So what are you doing now, Jorge? You can tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Like I'm originally from Mexico. People may start picking up my accent, but I've been living in Australia for almost 10 years. And right now I'm working with a international company called South Pole, where the penguins live. Now the company is on the South Pole. It's actually has headquarters in Switzerland, and from there now it has offices in about 18 countries. I am in the office of Melbourne in Australia, and basically we work enabling climate action to all, focusing on government and companies, helping them to go carbon neutral.
All right, that's a really tall task in this time, in this day and age, because it's all about the bottom line, and I think environmentalists come in the way of every company's bottom line. So
yeah, I love it. It's been like a great journey, and it's just getting better and better every year.
And you've always been very passionate about it. I remember talking to you about it in the middle as well. So it's a perfect job for you. Speaking of which, I think we should start. I've got so many questions about climate because I hear all these terms, and I know we're in a very dire strait, very critical point in our lifetime. So let me start by asking you, what is this? We keep hearing about the Paris Accord and the United States leaving the Paris Accord. So for those people who don't know what exactly that means, can you tell us what the Paris Accord exactly means?
In a nutshell, this is the agreement of the United Nations where 197 countries, if I remember well, signed the agreement committing to keep a safe climate for human civilization. What a safe climate means? That means keeping the global warming under 2 degrees Celsius from pre-industrial levels, with the serious intention to aim to get it down to 1 or cap it at 1.5 degrees Celsius. So maximum 2 degrees, ideally 1.5 global warming degrees. So this is very interesting because this is driven by science. This is coming from it's not a political event. It's coming from science, leading in numbers, very pragmatic. What do we have to achieve in order to keep a safe climate? That means a climate that is not going to be dangerous for our lives and the rest of life on the planet. Unfortunately, we always focus on human lives. The rest of lives really we don't care. So many species are doing really bad, and we're going to lose many others on the go. But we're talking about our species. We're talking about our civilization. And it focuses on 3 things. 1, mitigation of carbon emissions. So how we're going to manage to keep a safe climate under 2 degrees Celsius, ideally 1.5. Number 2, adaptation. A world that has warmed 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Celsius, it is already a risky world. Not dangerous, but risky. So we're going to do it very well. So some adaptation to the unavoidable warming and the effects of climate change. Because there are 2 things there to understand. One is when the planet warms because of our human activities, producing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and this is just warming the planet, then that global warming creates climate change. So the climate is changing because the planet is warming. So it's not the same concept, it's different. So global warming has to stop at 2 degrees Celsius maximum to have a 50-50 chance that we don't go in irreversible, crossing a threshold of irreversible damage. Wow. So we really are playing, it's a coin in the air because we don't know the full interaction of the climate with the cryosphere, the lithosphere, the atmosphere. That means, the earth, water, air, all these ice, all these interactions in the planet play a big role, and we're just learning from it because we've never been as a species in this level of carbon dioxide emissions. We've never seen the climate changing at this speed, and the climate has always changed, and it will keep changing. This is not about saving the planet. That's a very bad communication for marketing purposes. Sure. This is about us continuing on this planet. So we know that 1.5 degrees Celsius will be ideal to still cope with climate change. 2 degrees is very risky, 50-50 chance to get it right. But currently, where the trend is going to 4 degrees Celsius.
Oh, shit.
And this is, I want to just clarify something. This is not a linear growth. So this is not like 2 degrees is the double of dangerous than 1 degree Celsius. This is non-linear. Like 1.5, 1.7 may just trigger things that we were not expecting, and suddenly 2 degrees is not the double. It's like 3 times, 4 times more dangerous. And then 3 degrees is just more crazy. We actually don't know what to expect really well. We've never seen the planet on that state, at least not when we were on this Earth. So it is really critical, and this is why the urgency and the emergency. So the fact that the countries actually came together and signed this agreement, it was a huge milestone, right? This this is unfolding after the Kyoto Protocol. There was a first agreement that we had, and then we had a pause for a few years, and then finally we came up with a response as humanity in the Paris Agreement that took many years to be solved. It was signed in 2015, and it is starting this year to start making countries accountable of the promises that they put on paper. So from this year onwards, we need to start showing progress, and we are not doing it.
Yeah, I know. So speaking about not living up to their promises, what is the United States leaving the Paris Accord mean to the world? Because I remember the last conversation I had with you. You said, Raul, live the next 10 years of your life like they're your last, because the world is going to change so badly that you're not going to be able to recognize it. So what does it mean that, you said people are supposed to keep up with their promises? So the Paris Accord is basically a promise, but most promises are made to be broken. And they are, I think.
Yeah, it's a voluntary agreement, right? Like we, on a goodwill, the countries have signed, have committed to reduce their carbon emissions by certain percentage. Normally, like most of countries, because everyone has different responsibilities, right? Like not everyone contributes in the same way to climate change or to global warming. So, talking about the top countries, normally most of them have committed around, over 20 percentage of carbon emissions reductions. And that is not enough. That is the truth. So even if they have committed, and that is going to require a massive amount of change, radical change in policy, in private sector, and the collaboration of citizens, it is not enough to keep us on a safe climate trend. Emissions need to peak in 2020 and then start declining at a very fast pace of around 7.6% per annum. If we want to stay within this threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius. The reality is that every year emissions keep going up and up, and every year keeps concentrating more greenhouse gas emissions than the year before. So we're very good at creating more carbon emissions, but we're not good at all at reducing them. And this is it. This year, it should be reducing at a fast speed. And what we're finding is that thanks to coronavirus, it has dropped for the first time since the last economic recession, because economic recession seems to be the only way that we can reduce emissions.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is not because we are changing and being more conscious and willing to reduce our emissions and change our ways. It is because there's an economic depression that forces us to not produce and consume as much as we do normally.
God, it's a byproduct of the crisis that we have. So you're saying in 2008 again, did we see any change, like a positive change?
Yeah, there was a little dip, not good enough to keep us on track of what we have to do, but it was a little dip.
Okay.
Just like this year, the year hasn't ended, and in the peak of the pandemic, around April, we were able to reduce carbon emissions by 17%. 17%, which is great. I'm talking about an average, right? Yeah. So average emissions in the world, it's 17% reductions. As soon as we start to some countries to start coming out of the, I'm not going to say the pandemic is not over, but there's to relax the measures and people start going back to normal, then these emissions, this big gap that we have and it was reducing, we were very happy to see that, at least for the wrong reasons, we were doing actually on time. But now, until today, this 17% has been reduced to 5%. Because everyone is flying now again. Everyone is trying to just recover the lost time we had. And everyone is just consuming online like crazy. And the worst is to come because Christmas is around the corner. So we will see at least in the southern hemisphere, now we start into summer and all that. So people are desperate to go out of lockdown and spend holidays and travel and just consumption and carbon emissions everywhere. So we are really, really disappointed to see that we didn't learn anything. We were just forced, hidden by fear of getting infected and die and suffer. And that was the only way to keep us quiet. But during this pandemic, it was very clear to me who is responsible of the majority of environmental chaos, right? So humans, as soon as humans stayed quiet,
yeah,
quality of water recovered so rapidly, the quality in the air recovered so rapidly, carbon emissions dropped amazingly. Like, it's no excuse. Like, it's us. It's
yeah.
pretty.
Dude, the visibility from my house, the terrace in my building where I stay, it was so incredible. It's like, I mean, I live in Mumbai. Mumbai is extremely polluted. I mean, you would know that. The visibility was so incredible. I could see I live in the middle of the island. I can see all the way to the south from the terrace. It was incredible. Not just here, everywhere in the world. And that
Yeah.
fact you're saying that the chief cause of all these problems is the human being. If we start that conversation, this podcast is going to go on for days because I've got so many concepts based on that. It's not just my concept, it's a concept which is out there, but which I agree with. But like you said,
It's just a fact.
It's a fact. And like you said, the world's not going to come to an end. The world as we know it is going to come to an end. Perhaps humanity might come to an end. So I'm not saying I'm not advocating the end of humanity, but I mean, we can certainly take measures to stop the world from changing the way it is. So yeah, so if the United States leaves the Paris Accord, which it has, right, it's just gonna saying I'm not gonna keep up with these promises, and I'm just gonna produce whatever I want, right?
Well, the issue with the Paris Agreement is that it's not a binding agreement.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding. That we will see countries like USA. I was about to say China, but China surprisingly has announced a new commitment to be carbon neutral.
Wow.
We don't see that kind of behavior in USA. They're dropping, the Paris Agreement, saying we don't want to collaborate with the world. We don't care. All this is an invention from the Chinese.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, with that ridiculous leadership, being one of the most responsible countries for this global warming, is just a massive disappointment for all humanity.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too political about this, but just from the scientific point of view, if you are the biggest bullies of the world in the environment, because mere consumption, Americans consume more than anyone else, and now China is number one, but since 2005, China has been leading the top of the list of countries contributing to global warming, but at the same time, China has ambition targets to produce renewable energy. No one deploys more renewable energy than China.
Really?
China is like all on the go. China knows that's the future, and it's embracing it, and it's investing big time. Probably because if you don't do as they say, literally heads are gonna roll.
Yeah.
So they're really good at getting their commitments and goals in place. Because it's a dictatorship, right? But in our democracies, it's so difficult to get agreement on something. So the Paris Agreement is not a binding agreement, and what I think is going to happen, we're going to see many countries saying, we're sorry, we tried our best, but we didn't meet our targets.
Yeah.
Which mainly it's condemning us to experience the worst of global warming. So right now there's a lot of advocacy because the Paris Agreement is going to be reviewed every 5 years, right? So we need to make sure that we're on track, and the ambitions of the goals and the targets that every country set for themselves, and they're committing to that, they need to be reviewed and can change according to the context.
Correct.
So again, science is driving this. It's not a political party. It's not the government, the United Nations as an entity that governs every decision. This is based on science, and science is telling us we need to move quick, as soon as possible, at a rate of reductions of 7.6% per year, starting in 2020. So the fact that we already were ahead of the game with 17% reduction, and we came back to 5% today, we don't know how we're going to end the year after Christmas comes around. And so we still have a lot of work to do. And if I may, this offers a very clear sign of the magnitude of the effort that is required as humanity to reduce the emissions at that rate, because it was needed a pandemic for us to be able to reduce emissions. And nothing is said yet. Like we may not reduce 1% of the global emissions, because probably by the end of December, probably it turns out that we actually increased by 1%. So again, it's more than last year. So we need to be very conscious that we shouldn't feel desperate to go out and travel and consume and go back to business as usual. We cannot go back to business as usual, because that normality, that business as usual, was the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And we're depressed, is where we keep consuming, we're being brainwashed. The economy grows and grows and grows, but humans are not happier and more prosper, or the well-being is not there.
That's true.
So we really need, it's a great chance to bounce back better, not going back to reality.
Well, they say crisis is the only thing that brings humanity together. And this is a chief point of that.
That's a very important word. Crisis comes from the Latin root cri, C-R-I, cri, and cri admits reversibility. All right. So in a critic, in a Christ, in a criteria, like this means that it is reversible. Once there is crisis anymore, it is a catastrophe.
Yes. We're heading towards it. Yeah.
Catastrophe is not reversible anymore.
Okay, cool. So we're in crisis mode right now, at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the moment, it's a climate crisis, so it is still reversible, but we're against the clock.
Right.
We have no time. Do you want me to provide me a little bit of data on that?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Make your points, please.
Let's do a quick exercise. Okay.
Okay.
Measuring temperature in the world is really difficult. What scientists measure, it's concentrations of greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere. There are 6 greenhouse gases that we measure, but we all compress them into one to make it simpler, and it's called carbon dioxide equivalent, right? So that's our unit.
CO2, okay.
The unit that we use for gases is parts per million, right?
Yeah.
So parts per million is what we're going to be referring right now, parts per million of carbon dioxide equivalent, right? So 350 parts per million in the atmosphere globally is going to ensure that we do not overcome 2 degrees Celsius.
We do not overcome 2 degrees. Okay.
Yeah, 350 ensures we have a safe climate.
Okay.
450 get us to 2 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
Question: what is the concentration you reckon we are today at?
Oh gosh, I would like to say less than 450, but I know that's not the right answer, because you're saying we're at 4. So if we're at 4 degrees Celsius, so we're like at 600?
No. It's less than 450, because otherwise we'd be already in game over, right?
Okay.
Between 350 and 450, where do you think we're at?
380. It's a random number.
Okay, we're at 414.
Oh God, we're close.
You can look it up at NASA. If you type NASA climate change, it will come out with a page where you can. We're monitoring the vital signs of the planet, like ice caps, how much ice is melting, and the temperature in the atmosphere, and the acidity in the oceans, and all these things. So continue with the exercise.
Okay.
If we are at 414 of parts per million, and 450 is the limit,
Yeah.
what is the difference between 450 and 414? What is the budget left that we have to grow on carbon emissions?
36.
36. Very good. Very good. So 36 parts per million. Now, take into account this. We're growing in average 3 parts per million per year.
How many?
Per year, we keep growing in carbon emissions, right?
How much are you growing?
Three per year. So if we have 36 parts per million in the budget and we're warming up at the rate of 3 parts per million per year, how many years we have left?
12. It's screwed. That's why he said live the next 10 years of your life like they're last. That's pretty scary, man. That's pretty scary right there.
Now that is if we continue business as usual.
Yeah.
The idea is that 2020, we start, instead of growing 3 parts per million, we start getting climate neutral.
Right.
So we not increase anymore, and then we start decreasing. So we win time by the end of the century.
Yeah.
But reality is that if we don't start getting this done, as we haven't, since we've been talking and talking and talking in every conference of the parties of the United Nations, and nothing gets done, because it's not only about us as individuals, it's about companies as moral entities, and it's about governments putting radical policies in place, things like a carbon tax and emission reductions trading scheme, and this kind of policies in place to help move from fossil fuels into renewable energies, and all the practices like public transport and everything that we require to decarbonize our economies. So anyway, 12 years is what we have left if we continue with business as usual. Hopefully this will extend into 15, 20, 25, 30, 50 years, right? But it's up to us. So, that's what I say, like, let's just live this decade, the best possible, because if we fail, the world is gonna change in a way that you will not be able to recognize it. So the pandemic was a very small worry, not because it's related to climate change, but it's related to the abuse of nature. The fact that we keep interacting with wildlife, we are eating bats or whatever interaction we have with wildlife, it's getting us into a risk to get more viruses, more pandemics, and many other Earth systems that are being altered. And now we have to cope with bushfires like we did in Australia. Now California is going through it, but it will be also inundations, hurricanes, very, very extreme winter winds. It's just going to be chaotic in every sense, which means food relies on climate. Climate is not predictable anymore, so we may experience shortages of food. We will have to invest a lot of technology into keep producing food security, which means higher prices, but jobs are not paying more. So we start having all these conflicts, and it's just unfolding and creating more issues. This is why, from all the sustainable development goals, climate change perhaps is the most important. If we fail at addressing climate change, we may lose the opportunity to achieve all the other goals.
That's saying something, buddy. Those are strong words. Scary. Tell me, now I know the United States has left the Paris Accord, but I read a lot of companies in the United States says even though the government wants to leave it, we're still going to try and keep up the promises. So I want to know what measures the countries need to take. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here. First, I want to know what measures the countries need to take. Because saying, okay, I want to drop emissions every year by 15% or 20% is the promise, right? how would you do that? A. Second, what countries are the biggest culprits? Who are the chief winners who've done a good job? I know Bhutan. I know it's a very small country. Bhutan is hardly has any impact in the world, but it's a carbon negative nation. So, what do all these things mean? If you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in climate policy, but I will try to answer it. Basically, if I'm a president or a prime minister of a nation, what everyone has to do in their country is to decarbonize the economy. What does that mean? That means that you have to stop supporting and creating the incentives to keep burning fossil fuels, and you need to put those incentives back into renewable energies. So the change accelerates by penalizing any fossil fuel source and how can I say that? Like giving a prize or just making things easier to adopt renewable energy, right? So you need to incentivize, and that transition is very obviously there's a lot of resistance of the fossil fuel industry. People with a lot of money, a lot of power that do very dirty things, and they always try to scare governments by saying, if you don't give us incentives, you're going to lose all these jobs. We're going to leave the country. Your economy is going to go down, and the economy cannot stop because it can be the end of the world. The economy needs to keep growing, and that's a fallacy because we just experienced the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everyone to shit and we're still here.
Absolutely.
Like, it was not the end of the world. So knowing that we can do that sacrifice in the transition, yes, we're going to suffer a little bit, but then we have a whole future to win, a better future than the one that if we continue this journey, we basically have no future anymore.
I'm going to have to stop you for 1 second, Jorge. Just 1 second.
Sure.
What is it? What's happening? What happened? Because of this. Sorry about that. I had to answer somebody. So go ahead. Yeah, you were talking about it. Yeah.
So, as a government, what you have to do is you need to create that transition and put incentives in the right place. So, in other words, very pragmatically, if you are a government, you need to put a tax on carbon. It's one of the most effective ways because education is the best tool. Is a more long-lasting measure that you can give, but it's so slow. It takes generations, and we don't have that time. So the way how all people respond is not through consciousness, because we all know that the smoking is really bad, and there's still a massive amount of people smoking. They know they're gonna die and reduce their health. So consciousness do not reduce or ensures change, right? So what people respond best to is if you impact their pocket.
Yeah.
Everyone is quick to respond.
Yeah.
So putting a price on carbon is very effective, but also there are ways in getting that right. It's not making things more expensive for people. It's making companies accountable for their operations. So they are the ones who have to do the investment and not the people. Also, an emission trading scheme, trading carbon as a commodity, where you can measure, reduce your emissions, and where you cannot reduce, you can neutralize them by purchasing carbon credits. And that actually helps to deploy sustainable development because the projects generating those credits are projects that are based on natural solutions like reforestation, or more importantly, forest conservation, involving the communities like indigenous people to look after them. So we can really redistribute the opportunities and the wealth of the countries when we start jumping into these schemes. And the bottom line of all this is not about making life more expensive. The reality is that we need to internalize the externalities. That is an economic concept that means basically who pollutes should pay for it.
Correct. Yeah.
Has been free, and we cannot continue like that because pollution causes a lot of problems in the health industry, in death. Many people die every year because of bad air quality and so many other things. And obviously, how we are sharing this space and this world with other species. So biodiversity loss is a major issue, probably even more complex than climate change. And you're losing all other species that will rely to be functional on this planet. So, governments need to start looking after their people and the future of their own countries, and not just putting their pants down to the companies. Tell them, oh, if you dare to have a tax on me, I'm gonna leave you, and if I leave you, you're gonna lose all these jobs. It doesn't matter. We can win those jobs in the bright side, in the renewable energies and sustainable development. So that's from the point of view of the governments. What was the question that you asked?
I said, who are the chief culprits? Who are the guys who are making the most amount of mess in the world? Is it China, America, India? How's India doing? How's Africa? How's mining countries?
China by far. China
Australia.
by far. Yeah. There's a tricky part here. Okay, I'm gonna give you a country. China, USA, and India are the top three.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because just their economies are massive and they have a lot of people.
Correct.
That is the truth. You see the size of the country, and you see the number of people that they have. Well, obviously, they're going to result in that kind of stuff. After that is Russia, Japan. That's the top five.
Japan?
And Japan.
You've got so much nuclear energy.
Yeah. Yeah, but yet they're the fifth. Like the proportions.
Yeah.
Don't think that they're coming close to each other. Like China is far.
Yeah.
The biggest. Then USA, big time, and then far back. Well, not that far back, but somewhere back, India. And then way far back, Russia. And then way far back, Japan. But they're the top five, right?
Right.
Like if I tell you, China is pretty much like over 20% of the whole emissions. I think it's like 27% of the emissions globally.
It's a huge number, man. 27% is one country?
And then after that is USA with about 15%. And then is, well, if you count Europe as one, they are about like 10%. But, this is just the top of per country. The interesting part is when you do it per capita.
Yeah.
That changes the whole thing.
What's the ranking per capita?
Per capita, Australia is number one.
I was going to ask you Australia. I was going to say, Australia. Okay. Because the mining
Australia's number one. It's only 25 million people in Australia.
But
it's nothing.
Are the numbers high because they're a mining country, or is it because of consumption?
Exactly, because of coal. Coal is one of the most energy intensive of all the fossil fuels.
Correct.
And they export big amount of coal to China and India as a cheap sort of fuel. So, in this case, China and India should stop buying this fuel, but at the same time, you have such a big, demand of energy. It has to be a transition. You cannot stop suddenly, but you need to start generating, wind farms and solar farms and biogas, with all the farming and tide and waves energy and whatnot, like just even nuclear.
I was going to ask, what is your opinion on nuclear energy?
I don't like it.
Me too.
I think that we should invest into that because once you open that gate, shit happens. They're now super safe, and there's so many. It's so advanced, but in history of humanity, every time that we are so proud about how much we have evolved, and there's always a mistake that just takes us to the same lesson over and over again. So in my opinion, if you have so many other opportunities, the least we it would be nuclear. But if nuclear is going to bring the speed required to avoid a dangerous climate, then we're desperate, right?
But they're not going to let it happen because anybody who wants to develop nuclear technology, the world's powers come together and say they're harnessing it for war or for aggressive means. Say, in India, when they were trying to develop, I know we did the nuclear blast, but we don't use it. We have a nuclear bomb, but you're trying to harness nuclear technology for energy. We have nuclear power plants in India as well. Same thing, if any other country in the world is trying to harness uranium or create, what is the world body, the international, the body for nuclear weapons? I forget. Anyway, it's a famous body.
I don't know it.
Yeah, they keep jumping on you and putting sanctions on you. You can't harness uranium. So the world doesn't want you to do it because they're always scared that you're going to take that technology, harness the fission, and obviously you need the fuel, which is uranium 365, if I'm not mistaken. They won't let you buy it because they think once you do create the technology for controlled fission, you're going to use it for aggressive means, which is basically creating nuclear weapons. So it's like you said, it's a sticky wicket to be on, because even if you do develop it and if you don't have good control over it, the repercussions of a nuclear meltdown, I think, are far worse than climate change, because it'll just accelerate what climate change would do to you. And I mean, I think Chernobyl is uninhabitable for the next 20,000 years. 20,000 years. Imagine that. Even right now, Japan had that Fukushima. That was a tragedy. I haven't looked into the numbers, but it had a massive impact. And I mean, France has 70% of its energy is nuclear, man. I know Stockholm and most of the Scandinavian countries have said we're not dwelling into nuclear technology, because what happened was after Chernobyl meltdown, it was such a massive meltdown that because of the wind, all the nuclear fuel and the nuclear air, it went and touched Sweden and places in Scandinavia, and it was causing radioactive rain, and already causing a lot of cancer, and the number of the cancer cases spiked up tremendously. So even though Stockholm was close, Sweden was close to creating their first nuclear power plant, they scrapped it. They said we're never going back into it. But then again, I think they're very good at it because they've kept their promise of being of creating renewable energy. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you probably know better, but they're amongst the best in the world when it comes to renewable energy, right? Like Denmark's got so many wind farms, and I saw a lot of them there.
Yes. There's a difference between renewable energy and clean energy.
Ah, okay.
I advocate more for clean energy. Like all clean energy is renewable,
okay,
but not all energy is clean.
Ah, okay. Explain. I don't know this.
So for example, the nuclear energy, it can be renewable, but it's not clean. So solar or wind, it's clean energy, and by the fact, it's a renewable energy.
Yeah.
So a big difference, like for example, biogas is a renewable energy, but it's not a clean energy.
Right.
Because it's still a gas.
Oh, yeah.
It goes in a cycle, in a natural cycle, where it gets absorbed and then so it's renewable, it's renewed, but it doesn't mean that it's clean. So very, very important. My favorite is clean energy, and then renewable energies, although they overlap.
Yeah, but I think cleaner. So why do people not invest more? I've always asked, why do people not invest more in solar energy? It seems like the most logical way of creating energy. I mean, I don't know how efficient it is in producing if you look at it at dollar value, or even, I think you need a lot of space, right? But it is an unlimited source of energy. It's bottomless. As long as the sun is there, we're going to get it. Correct?
Renewable energies are right now cheaper than fossil fuels. The fossil fuel era is gone. Okay. It's gone. The fossil fuel is dying, and they know it, and they're so scared. And this is why they're trying to do everything they can to keep it alive. But the reality is that if you are a country investing in fossil fuels, you will soon end in nothing. So the Middle East is in trouble. USA trouble because they're addict to fossil fuels and their economies are based on that. Canada is in trouble, and
Is
they, latitude and geography plays a big role in how much renewable energy you can take. Solar is not your best friend if you're in Canada, but find it in other renewable energy sources that are suitable to your environment. So everyone has to look what makes sense to them, right? And portfolio, there's wind, there's geothermal, there is tidal, there is kinetic energy, like you name it. And here we go to the third part that you were talking about, like who are good models, who are actually embracing the opportunities and moving on from the old days where we were polluting the planet, trashing ourselves, killing everyone in exchange of having a safe, or I would say not safe, but energy security, right? So those countries are doing incredible things, like for example, Bhutan. Bhutan is a country that it is now exporting renewable energy to their neighbors.
Really?
And money from that. Obviously, Bhutan, it's a tiny little country between China and India.
Yeah.
And they actually are very progressive minded. They know that when you go and visit Bhutan, you need a permit and you need to pay per day for creating an imbalance in the sources of the country.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting because they acknowledge that resources are limited, and the fact that we embrace more pain, that means that we're gonna have to compensate for that. So we need to invest in more technology and more things, and that money has to come from
somewhere.
We're using those resources. So, fair enough. Very interesting. The case of Bhutan that is also embracing the happiness index.
Yeah.
So not measuring the success of in based on I forgot the term in English. Gross product.
Oh yeah, GDP, gross domestic product. Yeah, GDP.
GDP.
They do gross happiness product. Yeah.
So they're not basing anymore the success of the country on that. They're just using, like, if my people are happy, I don't need to keep growing indefinitely.
That's true.
If I have enough, let's preserve what we have. And they're moving now to very smart, concept of exporting. No, it's not only that they're producing enough energy for themselves, they're actually now exporting it, helping others, neighbors, to do better. So very, very interesting in the case of Bhutan. Obviously, all the Scandinavian countries are doing really well, to meet their targets and all that. Also because there are small populations. But I think about the main ones that we want to see in action are China, India, and USA.
Yeah, sure, man.
Brazil,
Mexico. Man, what are your opinions about the whole massive fire in the Amazon? People have stopped talking about it. I don't think people spoke enough about it. It's the lungs of the world. It's incredible, like what happened there.
It breaks my heart. But the same thing happens to Borneo, and no one talks about.
Did it happen in Borneo? I didn't know that.
Borneo, with all the palm oil, they have massive, massive problems because we keep eating chocolate and all these oils that we get in the processed food that we buy, and the cheapest oil available is palm oil. So they're forests to change the ecosystem and just plant palms to get the palm oil from. So it breaks my heart to see how they set up on fire everything, and orangutans, tigers, rhinos, everything starts just running for their lives because and the emissions coming from that just to have a better margin when selling your products. To me, it's like, this is not worth it.
I have a question. I know Malaysia is one of the largest exporters of palm oil in the world, and I think India is one of the largest purchasers of palm oil from Malaysia in the world. But are you saying that the fires in Borneo's rainforest are actually ignited? They're not natural. They're man-made fires?
Yeah, no, people, yeah, farmers say, like, what is the cheapest way to get, we're only going to cut down every tree, just set it on fire.
Oh God, aren't there protected lands over there? The rainforest? Shouldn't they be protected?
Have
No?
you heard about corruption?
Oh
Sounds
yeah.
familiar?
Hey, I live in India, man. Are you telling me about corruption?
You know, they always offer money in exchange of protection, and it's just like, it really, really breaks my heart that, so, you know, there's the glacier ecosystem is the last remaining patch of that forest where still orangutans, rhinos, tigers, and elephants coexist.
Wow.
And it's down the drain because, you know, people, if we, the people, do not fight for the world we imagine, it's not going to be delivered to us.
It's not happening though. You know, everything you're saying right now, I'm literally getting scared listening to you right now because I'm like, wow, we're worrying about, I mean, people are worrying about small things about, I mean, it's not a small thing, but things like their career and things of what's going to happen in the next 2, 3 years with their life, their personal life. What they're not really understanding is if we keep living the way we're living, in the next 10 or 12 years, none of that's going to matter because it looks like the apocalypse is about to start, you know, and every year there's something new. Amazon burning down, then the forest fires in uh, in California and Australia, massive fires there. Tell me about the water crisis. I hear very soon the world is going to run out of drinking water. Like, I know South Africa is in a dire strait. India apparently is going to be water dependent by the end of 2030. What's going to happen then?
We'll have to do another podcast on water because that's
Yeah,
another.
yeah. Because I
All I
love
can tell you, water is not going to run out.
yeah.
The water is the same water that the dinosaurs were drinking. It's the same water that we're drinking now, and it will be the same water that you know, we're going to be able to drink in 1 million years if we're still around. The issue is not water. The issue is water availability.
Yeah, yeah.
1% of the water in this planet is available for human consumption.
Mm.
It tells you that it should be super precious.
Yeah.
It's a liquid. Without water available to us, we can't do anything. No industry, not hygiene, nothing. And just think about this. Maybe not in your country, but in Western countries, you know, the fact that we use this vital liquid to push our shit down the toilet, it's a good argument just to justify how stupid we are. You know, it's not something that we should be doing because we use water in ways that is just obscene. It's
Oh
like
man.
if we have no awareness of what this means to us. Anyway, there's a lot of solutions around water. I think that's not the main challenge because we will be able probably to be better off using some of the technology available nowadays and what is to come. However, that's, you know, a big topic that we can talk another time.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. I think we're going to do that again. I think definitely going to do that. But this was really, really detailed, man. You gave us so much information. I think I'm going to turn into
I,
an environmentalist. You know, I'm an airline pilot, and I don't think you'd be best friends with me anymore. But I gotta start changing.
there are things that cannot stop and should not stop because, you know, thanks to flying, we're talking now. If you didn't fly to Rome and I wasn't there as well,
Right.
we've never met, and this wouldn't be happening.
No, the solution is alternate fuels and renewable, like you said, renewable energies and alternate fuel. There's already there've already been flights with solar panels. You know, it's in the motion. It's just about, you know, getting the ball
I can,
rolling and making that taking the first step is very important.
I
So
can tell you that South Pole, my company, is already engaged in the research and development of new fuels for the aviation industry. And there's a whole organization with, you know, very smart people working towards more efficient fuels.
yeah.
And we will have turbocene, like these kind of fuels that are going to reduce at least 50% the carbon emissions from aviation. And
Oh,
in the
nice.
best scenario, 8%.
Wow.
So yes, all these things are very nice to hear,
Yeah.
but show me the action. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna come next year. This is
Yeah.
still in development, but that's what we should be focusing with our investment. Governments should be, advocating and providing the resources and the people and the jobs required on this. Every year we see more and more countries pulling out because the economy is not growing at the
Yeah.
level they're expecting. They pull out funds for science. They pull out funds for research and development. They keep investing in short term bullshit. So the pandemic showed us what was essential, and science is crucial for the
Yeah.
well-being of people. All the other things can be good companions, but cannot be priority.
Yeah.
Yes, we need you know sportmen and superstars and YouTubers and
Yeah.
influencers and yeah, but all that great. It's not priority.
Yeah.
I would like to say as well that a country that is not betting right here, right now, into science, research, and development in technology, pretty much you are condemning the future of your people. If you're still based on agriculture and you're still based on mining, but without
Yeah.
transitioning to the smart side, you have many years to go, and that's scary because we don't see, like for example, Mexico. It has very bad leadership. Every new president is going from bad to worse, and people are still just asleep in when they give their vote to the new person in turn, they just want quick fixes. And we need to wake up. There's no single bullet. There's no messiahs that will come and save us. No one president can change and turn the whole crisis around. This is why it's very dangerous. If you're not looking at the agenda, like what is the plan, how you're gonna get us there, if you don't have a very easy plan that everyone can understand and makes sense to turn things around, not in those, in my case, in my country, 6 years, but whatever, maybe 4 years, 6 years of government, you're not going to get your mission done in 6 years. You need to pass on that plan to the next one. And we all need to collaborate with a single goal in the long term future. So, in 2, 3 decades, finally, we can see in one generation the shift from being really going to poverty into really equal distribution of the wealth.
Yeah.
Because countries keep growing in GDP, like probably Mexico and many others, but that does not mean that Mexicans are seeing the benefits.
Oh man, that's another conversation we can have. 100%. I agree with you myself. I agree with you 100%. Like people say, oh, India's economy has grown at 7%. Okay, not now, but in the past, for a long time, it was growing at 7%, 8%. Even now, we're growing fast. Okay, last government, not so much. But in the future, again, we're going to grow because it has to grow. There's no other way. But the money doesn't reach the people. So now when we start talking about this, we're going to turn into socialists. But that's another conversation we should have again. And I agree with you 100% about these things. But what you just said about the climate, it is, man, I've been affected by it. I'm going to try and be a little more conscientious with regards to what I do. And I think what I can learn is that, yeah, like you said, we're in a quagmire. It's critical. We're in crisis situation. And if we don't take efforts now, we're done for. We've reached the point of no return, basically, in aviation terms.
Correct. I would like to close probably the podcast by giving a positive impression that every week or every month we get new big companies committing to climate action. They're all setting targets like carbon neutral or net zero emissions by 2030, by 2050. The adoption of renewable energies keeps growing massively, exponentially, year after year. So it is happening. The revolution is here and it's not going anywhere. So either you jump in as a person and as a country and as a company, if you want to survive the new economy is going to be carbon neutral. There's no other way. It will be like that, or it will not be at all. That's it.
That's it.
So it's not going to stop. The question is how fast we're going to get there. And that's the big trouble. We have no time to lose. So, as citizens, it's our duty to vote for the people who represent us. And that priority has to be the climate.
Yeah.
Without the climate, we have no future. The whole Earth, 11,000 years of a relative stabilization of the climate has given us the opportunity to come up as a civilization. Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
Phoenicia, Egypt, Rome, all these civilizations until our day, they all prospered because a stabilization of the climate. 11,000 years. Before that, we were walking around the globe just looking for the best opportunities because there was no stabilization in the climate. Yeah. Now, losing it again, it is our endeavor to get this as a priority. So, forget about jobs and forget about economic growth. Like, just get the climate right, just to have time and a safety to keep solving other issues like poverty, inequalities, hunger, and stuff like that. So hopefully, we can vote. Hopefully, we can stand up in our companies, in our own companies and our own jobs to say, what are we doing about the climate? We want internal policies. We want to be carbon neutral.
Yeah.
We also have to talk more about it. People don't talk about this topic at all.
Yeah. Nobody does. Nobody does. Yeah.
So we need to talk about it with your friends, with your family members, and don't be afraid to be judged. It's all about taking that momentum forward because it's now or never. Literally, we are the last generation that has opportunity to get this right. So all that is enough to make this life and this moment in history super exciting. We are a tremendous great opportunity to have first-hand tickets. We're in the front row to see the transformation for a better world or the end of our civilization.
Yeah.
Whatever may happen, we have front row tickets.
Yeah, we're either generation 100 or generation 0. Either last of the kind or the first of the kind. But you know what? I can already see entrepreneurs sitting and twiddling their thumbs and saying, there's a crisis, the world's going to come to an end. How do I make money out of this? Have you seen that show, Snowpiercer? It's about how the climate change is taken over and the world is uninhabitable because it's so cold that even if it's how maybe Jupiter is. It's frozen, the planet's frozen. And they create a train. And there's this one train with a what do you call it, a self-replenishing engine. It's a constant engine. And the world basically lives in that train. So that's like a business opportunity right there. Do you know what I mean? And so people are already thinking about, they're not, how you're saying that we have to talk about it. I think some people have already accepted defeat, said, okay, we've already screwed up. How do we live now? So the concepts on TV are about, most of them are post-apocalypse. Have you noticed? It's either a zombie apocalypse or the climate. I think obviously climate is most realistic. So yeah, but like you said, action time, man. It's not a question of contemplating of what it's about doing. Otherwise, the thin ice that we're skating on is going to crack. It's correct.
We're going to see, I think, within our generation, if we get to an average lifespan in this world, like it's 80 years, we are already halfway through. But if we get to live so far, I think we are going to be able to see the human going interstellar. So we're going to start getting into other galaxies and stuff like that. But to be honest, Raul, I don't care if we manage to survive and when I say we, I'm not talking about myself. I'm not important. Only I want to be part of that crew. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, even if I was part of it, I refuse to leave this planet because this is the most exciting, incredible planet that I've ever met. It's full of life everywhere. And I just get so excited to just stay here. I have nowhere to, I don't want to go anywhere.
Oh, no, I've done an entire podcast on this, Jorge. I've done a podcast on interstellar travel. It's on Spotify, my video podcast, which I was my audio podcast, which I was going to do with you. One of them talks about interstellar travel, and it talks about what, there are two two thoughts when it comes to interstellar travel. Is one is Elon Musk's idea of going and living on Mars, but you have to terraform the whole of Mars and move civilization. Then there's Blue Origins, which is uh, Jeff Bezos, where he says we're going to mine other planets. But the best planet to live on is not another planet. The best planet to live on is Earth, because we are made to live on Earth. Our body is created to live on this planet. If you go there, you have to first convert that planet by terraforming it into this planet. So why do you want to leave this planet in the first place?
No need to complicate it.
Don't complicate it. Fix this. Mine from there. And I think the future is going to look like that. I think we're going to mine other planets and we're going to live here if we survive that long.
If something has shown us this pandemic, is that we're not as strong as we thought we are.
No, we're not. We're not.
We're not as smart as we thought we are. We're not as resilient as we thought we are. All
Yeah.
that is just that they sell us through the movies. We
Yeah.
actually are a species
Oh,
that has a lot to learn, and we can even come together to solve our shit.
yeah.
So all promises that we're gonna conquer other planets and all that.
Yeah, that's science fiction. That's fantasy where, yeah, it's about these billionaires playing a game. I understand what you mean, man. You gotta fix this planet, and it's action time. It's go time now, right? I think
That's it, my friend.
I think we got crusaders like you, and I think it's become cool to be a environmentalist now. So when something becomes cool, people do it more and strive to do better at it. So when something is cool, politics being as dirty as and corrupt that it is, they always want to pander to the public. So if climate change is cool, politicians are going to pay more attention to climate change, and they're going to take more decisions which help climate change. So
Look at New Zealand, the new female president that is so young, and she's an environmental activist, or she
Who?
was. Now is the prime minister of New Zealand.
oh yeah, she's great. She's incredible, no doubt about that. She's
Man,
she's a role model, man. She's so cool. Like
she's so
I don't move to New Zealand just because of her. I mean, it's incredible.
agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll probably see you.
Definitely.
Probably see you there, man. Hey, man, what a pleasure. All right, you've given us so much information. I think I got to do another podcast for sure. I'm definitely going to do another podcast.
Anytime, my friend.
Yeah. And okay,
I-
guys, if you just heard how passionate Jorge is about environment, so he's just done a TED talk at Monash University, if I'm not mistaken, which is in Melbourne. It's a very big deal, and it was extremely well received. I'm sure you must know why if you've already heard him. So I think it's going to be published in December on the TEDx platform and on YouTube. So do follow it up. Google him. It's Jorge Acevedo. I'm going to write the whole information down on the link. So catch him up. And we're going to do a podcast again. We're going to talk about water. I like that one. It's scary. That is really scary. I don't care about
Anytime,
oil.
my friend.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to reconnect with you after all these years.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's go. No fear. This is our moment. This is our planet. This is our life.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, man, thanks so much for stopping by. I'll see you again soon.
Thanks for the invite. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye, buddy. Peace.